They're doing materials right
Kitchen.
now.
Was it a good?
Okay.
A good kitchen?
All right, good evening. Welcome to the Georgetown School Committee meeting of Thursday, January 10th, 2013. First item on our agenda is the consent agenda, which includes the approval of minutes from the regular session of 12/6/2012, public relations minutes of November 9th, 2012, public relations minutes of December 7th, 2012, and safety minutes of December 13th, 2012, as well as acceptance of warrants 25V13, 27V13, 24P13, and 26P13.
So moved.
Second?
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Cole, welcome back.
Happy New
You had
Year,
a great
Cole.
vacation. Good.
Very nice. And
Everyone back in the swing of things at school now?
yeah, it was a little slow. Everyone was kind of, still in vacation, at least that Wednesday when we came back. But everyone's actually gearing up for midterms, and teachers have started preparing for it. So that's fun.
Fun, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, and but no, it's fun to be back and see everyone. So I think everyone definitely missed each other. But yeah, I mean, sports are going still. I mean, I know they had practice all during vacation, and yeah, everyone's just good.
And what about the play?
Play that's coming up, and I one of the leads in it, as well as three other people, three other seniors, and that's going to be the 7th, 8th, and 9th of
February, right?
Mm-hmm.
And tickets, that's always the big.
Yeah, I don't know the price.
Okay, but they'll go on sale
Yeah.
sometime at the end of January?
Yeah, I think no, it might be the first week of February.
First week, okay.
And can you tell us all what the play is again?
It's Guys and Dolls, so it's very
And what
fun.
role do you play, Cole?
I'm Sky Masterson.
Okay, yeah.
So-
No, you have the lead then.
Yeah.
Not a lead, the lead.
Oh, great.
That's great. It's all, if you have a chance to go, it is always
love
such a
to.
treat. I think you
I
can't
will.
even believe
I would like
that these are high school kids in this performance. It's just amazing.
Yeah, we're actually ahead of the game, so my
Yeah.
director, Ms. Denman, is very proud of that. So we're definitely doing good. So I can't wait. I really can't
Great.
wait.
God. Do you know how many students are in it?
I want to say between 40 and 50.
Okay, that's
So,
fantastic.
Yeah.
I love that they
do include a lot.
I do that I like that they always have something that seems to be inclusive of as many people as they can. It's pretty
Yeah,
neat.
we try not to cut too many people this year because so many people try out. You don't want to,
You don't want to throw it there.
yeah, you don't want it like 20 people when so
Right.
many people try out. So
That's the same with the middle school. They had over 60 kids that they figured out ways to include. And Pembroke, same thing. I think the entire fifth grade, anybody in the fifth grade that wants to be in the play, there's a place for them. So it's great.
so yeah.
Great, thank you. Next up is audiences. Is there anyone in the public that wishes to comment on anything on the agenda tonight? All right, guess not. Is Coach Spur coming? Oh, I'm sorry, Laura is saying no, he's not coming. So we'll do that. Carol, we're gonna do that the next
Yes.
meeting?
Uh,
Oh, we're not doing,
yeah.
Laura, we're not taking it off?
I think I don't quite know what Laura's indicating to you, but I'm suspicious. I'm suspicious that he probably doesn't need school
Okay.
committee approval to do it.
All right.
The only things that have to come to you for fundraisers are the things where there's a direct solicitation of students and staff. If the parents put something together and they fundraise to other parents, that's
Right.
not what you need to approve.
Okay, that's,
So that must be what's going on.
yep. Okay,
Correct, Laura? Is that?
yeah, okay. Well, it's tricky because I know I get a lot of emails about different fundraisers that people want to do and understanding when they have to come to us, so I
Exactly.
understand how that can happen.
Yep, I do too.
Okay, next up are the superintendent's report.
Right. So in your orange notes, there's a few things, and we do have Barry Belanger here today to talk about the website upgrade. So I'll just quickly do the other two, and then we'll segue right into Barry. As you know, we've been working, after Newtown, taking a fresh look at our security measures, some of which obviously we can talk about in public, and others we can't. And under the open meeting law, executive session, it is acceptable in executive session to talk about very specific security measures that might, if they were to be spoken with the public, they would potentially jeopardize the security. So we will have an executive session to talk about things that are at that level. But otherwise, I do want to just I want to very briefly update you on many of the things that have been done in this area. Through the hard work of, a combination of people, the principals, all the administrators really have worked on it. Mike Anderson has worked very hard on it as well. Joan's been involved. I mean, it's been a true team effort, and today there was a district safety committee meeting. I wasn't able to go because I was at the DECA competition today, which I'll talk to you in a minute about. But I know that the team met, and they did, this is one of the agenda items, and I know I've spoken with both chiefs, of the police chief and the fire chief, and they've been very appreciative of the efforts that we've made in the schools to upgrade our security, and I think are feeling very satisfied that everything that we're doing is in line with what really needs to be doing. It needs to be done. So in your packet, I believe we put a list of the security measures. Some of them have been done at all schools. So if you've come to the schools within the last few weeks, you probably have noticed the secretary asking you if she can help you. And, kind of what is your reason for being here? And I have noticed, and I really appreciate the fact that the parents have been very willing to comply with that. Everybody's, I think, understanding why it's being done. Signage, you'll notice there's signs that direct people, and even at Pearlie and Pembroke, you'll notice there's actually like a movie theater. In fact, we're joking that it's like the red carpet. The carpet should be red, because you have no choice but to go down the carpet to lead you to the office, and there are signs that direct people there. Again, everybody's been very compliant. You saw in here some cameras that have been ordered. Of course, everything in some ways is back ordered because of the fact that everybody's doing the same thing we are. But there is a plan which we'll talk more specifically about after. Panic buttons have been purchased. There are 5 per school, and so the administrators are talking now about like where they'd like them positioned so that we would be able to install them. And the concept there obviously is that, if there's something that somebody's concerned or worried about, they would push the panic button, one of which, can be mobile, others can be mounted. But they would go directly to an emergency line, and the police would, report immediately. Identification badges, that's something that we're in the process of transitioning to. So hopefully by the end of the month, everyone who's on staff will be wearing an identification badge so that everybody will know that they belong there. And then key readers are being installed in each front entrance. So the doors now, at the beginning of the day, are locked. So it used to be that just use Pearlie not till 9:30 when everybody was in after the preschool. The doors were all open, and then they got locked. Now they're locked in the morning. Anybody entering between 7 o'clock, like before school people, they go to the side entrance. They get buzzed in by the extended day staff. Any teachers that are early arrivers, they also get buzzed in on that side door. There's a very small window when all the children are coming, when the doors are unlocked, but they're locked as soon as, the school day starts. And teachers are, when these key readers are in place, the teachers will be able to just swipe in, or have a fob. I'm not sure exactly what we decided, but there's a mechanism by which they can do it. And then you can see specifically under each school. Under Pearlie, just a couple things I would point out that I know the parents would need to know, and that is that the kiosk doors are locked during the day. There is a little camera buzzer system there. We used to have people come in there during the day. But in thinking about that again, and that once people come in, the proximity from the office and the proximity to where the children are, we've determined that the safest thing is to ask people to come in through the front door and allow no admittance through the kiosk door. Maybe the exception to that might be somebody who's handicapped because they would not be able to get up the front steps. But for everybody else, it's not accessible during
Do you have
the
a
day.
sign saying that you can't
We do.
access through here?
Yes, we
Okay.
do. And people have, again, been very compliant with that. There's if you, right outside my door, there's a big mirror, so when the secretary at Pearlie sits in her seat, she actually can see the hallways. So she has a view. So if someone were to come in and go down the hallway where they don't belong, she would know that right away and be able to address that. We talked about classroom doors being locked at all times. We have signage that basically says that people have to have a visitor's badge, and we've asked people, if someone's in the building that doesn't have a visitor's pass, we ask them to remind them that they need to go to the office and notify the office that there's someone without a visitor's pass. Laura's door, accessibility to the superintendent's office is now through the business office. So that door, her door is locked, that generally, people can access and enter, and everybody's coming through. Everybody that comes to see me now signs in at the Pearlie office so that we know at all times who's in the building. Whereas before, people used to kind of hop in, come around the corner and see me. The stanchions sort of direct you now to go to the front desk and sign in and get your visitor's pass. Same thing at Pembroke. There's stanchions there. The secretary has told me that she feels that they help. She would like them to be a little longer if she could. She would prefer them to be like another width. But it's helping because apparently people used to come in and then just immediately disperse, and people didn't necessarily sign in. So she does feel that this is helping, and if that's something we can look into, is just extending those. That was a request that she made of me. Again, locking doors in the morning. The one thing that was brought up at the community meeting, and it is something that I know that we're in the process of handling, and that is locking the door at the close of the day, because there is an after-school program. There also are a lot of evening activities. So what we're going to do with extended day funds is we're going to hire, we're in the process, we've posted and advertised, we'll see what we get, for a monitor, an after-school dismissal monitor. I don't know what is a better word for it, but basically they will sit at the front desk. The doors will be locked. They will buzz people in. If it's a parent coming to pick a child up, they'll call walkie-talkie, so-and-so's here to pick up their child. The child will come down. They'll get signed out. And then GAA people or whoever comes in is going to need to come in and sign in that they're in the building. And then obviously, when the after-school program is gone, then the children are gone, the monitor leaves, as does the program staff. But and GAA, if they're using the building, they're responsible. The custodian will make sure all the doors, are locked and nothing's ajar. But that was very concerning to people, is that the children are down in the cafeteria or in the library, and anybody can just walk into the school. So that is something that we're hiring someone to monitor that door. And then at the middle high school, their security system was in pretty good shape, but there were some gaps, and you can see here that we're looking at the key system being upgraded. They'll have a swipe system, and there are a number of cameras in the school, but they were sort of housed in a closet. And so what we've done now is we've put a computer on the desk of each of the secretaries, who they have certain camera angles that they have accessibility to all the time. So if there's anything that concerned them, somebody went down a hallway without signing in, they would be able to see that, and they would be able to alert the administration right away. So that's a summary of what some of the things that we've put in place immediately. And then on the back is something Mike put together in terms of exactly, much more specifically, which we'll talk about in the executive session. Okay. Second thing quickly, and again, I tried in the orange notes to give you some detail, and Rob can certainly chime in on this, and that is many people are asking sort of what's going on with the Pembroke project. Anna's asked me next meeting, to invite Ellie and Michelle just to do a little bit more of a detail. But just so you know, the project is moving forward. At the end of the month, there's another submittal to the MSBA, at the end of this phase, which is the design development phase. Then after that, construction documents are developed. So that process at the end of January, and then we'll wrap that process up and then we'll move forward. But I want you to have the opportunity to hear from the building committee and or the architects, whatever you prefer, or want, if you want both, I'm sure that's possible, to just let you know exactly what the things are that they're recommending at this stage in the process, without having a full-blown, meeting on every little detail. But they can give you the
But just kind of a
highlights.
status-
They can give you the
status
highlights.
update, and I'm sure the public would be very
Yeah,
interested.
I mean, one of the things,
Yes.
well, the public should watch the building committee
Yeah.
meetings if they really want the details, because that's
Okay.
where they're getting into the nitty gritty. But I
Because
think,
we have votes required, and so I just want us to be up on where everything is.
right,
So that when the votes come up and we need to make decisions.
right, something
we're-
surprising.
We know what's going on, but Carol's right, for the public, they should be paying attention to those meetings, because this is really meant for us to have that 60,000,
Right.
foot view of where
Right.
we are.
And I
What is
think-
the vote that's coming up?
Well, I think, I was just going to say that I think one of the things that's important here is there are certain votes that the school committee must take per MSBA's guidelines, one of which was grade configuration. They expected you to approve that.
Right.
Special ed configuration, they expected you to approve that. But from now on, honestly, all the votes are the building committee votes.
Oh, so we don't
Because-
have any?
No,
Okay.
it's a town committee, so therefore the town committee is the one that takes the votes.
Okay.
But I do think since obviously it impacts the school committee and the school, the school in general, it's important for you to have at least a couple of updates, maybe at were before or after each phase. So before the design development stage ends, it'd be good for you to get a little information.
Terrific,
And
yes.
then obviously when construction starts, the documents start being developed, you might get another session there. The different thing that's happening now is the subcommittee work. So they are getting into things like, what's the kitchen layout gonna be like? What's the security system that's gonna be put in there? What kind of furniture is gonna go into each classroom? So they have been meeting with two kinds of groups. One, the actual school staff itself, where it's pertinent.
Great.
And then the other is members of the building committee and others that, have a certain expertise in a particular area. Like I think on my notes I noted Rob is working on sort of the design part, because that's really his area of expertise. So, there's a number of meetings. Next week, the architects are in the buildings Tuesday and Thursday. They were there all day today. So, I think we're trying very hard to allow people to participate in the process. We have some it hasn't been all smooth and lovely, but we're continuing to work on it. Let's just say that. So that, Rob, did you have anything else that you would want to add to?
Well, I think only because it is such an important project, I would like to just clarify a few things
Sure.
with regards to the schedule. The design development, I pulled this out of my other notes before, but the schedule is at the end of January 31st is when 100% complete design development drawings are due. Then, towards the end of February 28th, is when there is the submission of those design development drawings to the MSBA. And in that month in between is when these drawings will be priced, and then the pricing will come back to the architects to then have about a week to reconcile pricing and final items before it gets submitted to the MSBA on February 28th. And then construction documents are in play basically February on, with the documents being scheduled for completion, 100% completion, August 5th, 2013. Construction is expected to begin November 2013, and occupy the new building. They have scheduled for August 25th, 2015. And then there's a few months for demolition of the existing building and closing out the project to be completed December 25th, 2015. So they're shooting for occupying the building August 25th. Ready
So
for
maybe what
occupancy.
we can do, Rob, is, because we can get a clean copy of that, maybe we can just, for your benefit, we can include that in the packet for next meeting. So when Ellie and those guys come, you'll
Yeah,
have
that would be
you'll
great.
have that fresh in your mind.
And then one of the items that has come up with site, and this is for the school committee and the budget and finance, is that I think, and I'm not clear where it's going, but there is going to be some additional snow removal costs incurred by the school for the sidewalks and certain portions that Peter can't get to. So that equipment and that time is just something that we're gonna have to address. That was one item.
Yeah, well, that's the kind of thing where, when we're gonna talk about capital improvement, CIP, those are kind of, whatever's not paid for by the building project, because obviously the bottom line is the bottom line. That doesn't mean there can't be some increase in cost on some elements, but then there's gotta be a decrease in cost on others, or the town bears the additional cost. And obviously, we're all trying to come in on time and under budget. So, what Rob, I think, is talking about is, because of the way the sidewalks and the roads and things are gonna be designed, there may be a need for some very specific equipment. So there may be money in the budget for that, but it's gonna compete with other things, right?
Right.
So at the end of the day, it's a juggling act, but if we aren't able to get everything we need with the building project, then one possible option is for the school committee to recommend to the CIP the purchase, because that would meet the qualifications of capital improvement funds. It would be more than $10,000 in cost, and it would last for it would have a useful life of more than 5 years.
Right.
So, when we say they don't have the equipment, like, we can remove snow from sidewalks now, but are we putting in something different for sidewalks, or
It's just-
something different for?
It's more of them. It's, the school is just a bigger school.
Yeah, Peter's concerned about
It's
how
just
long
a
it will
bigger
take.
school and getting
Okay.
it opened in time. Under the same amount of time that he has today to get this school opened, he's got much bigger parking lots and so on.
He won't
Okay.
have as much to do at Pearlie, so there may be some exchange there. But they're just anticipating that there
Okay.
may be some, we don't know that
Yeah.
yet, because they're really early,
Okay.
they're still in the design process.
All right.
And then I think the last thing I'd say is that if anybody has any desires to be fully on board about site-related issues, now's the time to do it, because after this submission of 100% DD, the site is pretty well, it's about 60% of construction documents, so not a lot's gonna change after this. So if anybody is interested in site issues, you've got probably a week or so to really jump in and speak up. I think that was it. That's all I
Okay,
wanted.
and, so that's, anybody questions about the Pembroke project?
When's the next meeting?
Next meeting, we have
Next
a
building committee meeting?
Building committee.
22nd.
Next Tuesday.
Okay.
Oh, 15th.
I thought it was next Tuesday. I thought for
Should
the
have
next
it.
several weeks, they were meeting every week, every Tuesday, because there's a lot
We
to
have,
approve.
yeah, I knew we were meeting the 17th for the site, and I know we're meeting for the 22nd for the building committee. The 15th,
Okay, let me just
I
check here.
thought was like a placeholder that hadn't been.
Yeah, I've
Oh,
got
that they
school
haven't
building
assigned it.
committee.
Yeah.
I've got it in my calendar, but that doesn't mean that it's,
I didn't,
So it's the 15th?
yeah, I mean, I know they're meeting on the
15th, 17th, 22nd.
they're meeting the week that you have the
At-
school committee meeting.
22nd
Here.
is building committee.
Are they here or, okay.
Building
Yeah, they're
committee
here.
here.
The
The
17th
site
too?
committee on the 17th is a site subcommittee, and that is meeting at Pearlie,
Yep.
right? And then the 15th is, I'm not 100%
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Okay, so there's 3 meetings that people can attend to hear about the site, to voice their opinions
Yeah.
and everything.
Yeah.
That's
All
right.
right.
And before we turn over to Barry here, I just wanted to mention that I told you I was at DECA today. And we took 38 students and 26 students are going on to the States.
Ooh.
It was phenomenal, and it's just phenomenal. It's a great experience. Dave Bjork did it this year. He
I got an
judged.
email from
He
him about
judged.
with a question.
So if
He
you're
said
ever
that.
interested in that, you know, they are always looking for judges, and it's a great way to learn about the program, and you will be completely impressed with what these young people, how they're poised, the way they present themselves. It makes you feel really good when you go, and we have a lot to be proud of. And then I just came from an acting little thing Carrie Donovan put together with her basic acting class, and they just did these adorable little one act kind of plays. And I just want to say, I mean, we have the big plays, which really are productions, and then we have little things like that just, we have so many talented kids, and it's just, it's wonderful. It's wonderful to see the range, not only sports, but, the drama, acting, singing, the music program.
We just started taking on the big musical like
4 years
four
ago.
years
I
ago?
think
Yeah.
there's been 4.
And it's really taken on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
We
then
used-
last
yeah.
year was the first middle school.
That's right.
So it's really moving along.
It
which
is.
is nice
it
to
is.
see.
And having the theater arts program added to the program of studies, which we did in the override, I think it makes is an important step. I like to continue to support that.
Carol, do we keep track of the percentage of students at the middle and high school level that participate in a school activity at some level?
I believe Peter does, because that's actually one of the things he says at graduation each year. Such and such a percent of the students and
Actually
participate. And
involved in-
Yeah, he had last because I remember at the meeting after graduation, I highlighted those percentages that he has,
Okay.
and he does do.
yeah,
he
maybe
does a good
I'll
job
ask
tracking
Peter. Maybe
that.
he can do a kind of a more regular update, because not just the seniors. So he talks about what the seniors are doing, but maybe we can take a look at because it is pretty impressive when you see the participation level and the opportunities that our students take advantage of. And if you don't have children at the middle high school, you wouldn't know that.
Right.
So that's
Exactly.
why it is
Yeah.
good for the public also to know that. So, and finally, in the notes, I explained that one of the things, and Pam and Rob can take a lead on this discussion as well. They're the public relations subcommittee, and so one of the things we've been talking about is what are the ways that we can get and give information to the public in a clear, efficient, and effective way. And so one of the strategies that we identified, the low-hanging fruit that we said we need to take care of like right away, was to really update and sort of do a redesign of the website. I'd be remiss if I didn't thank Carl Norloff, who is a citizen in town who, when we didn't have, an opportunity, when our website really wasn't in good shape at all, Carl stepped forward as a volunteer. He's very smart, very technologically savvy man. Stepped forward, gave a lot of time, agreed to put a website together for us at his own, basically his own cost and in his own time. But Carl has he's got now a successful company, Rebo, that he started. He's got a lot of things, a lot of irons in the fire. In fact, when we talked about when the kids came and talked about the school store, Carl was in the audience because Carl has stepped forward and is helping them through Rebo get that store online. So what we talked to him about is, it's a pretty sophisticated website that really we didn't really have the time or the ability, capacity to maintain it at the level, and Carl didn't have the time to maintain it either. So we began thinking, well, maybe we can look in-house again and see. And Barry is someone who we often rely on. He does the elementary Pearlie and Pembroke sites, and he's got us all fired up about Google sites. And so one of the things we did is we brought Barry into the conversations. And then what you're going to see tonight, we're just going to kind of run through this very quickly, identify a few elements for you, and then, as I said in the notes, we would love your continued participation. This is, I don't want to call it a dummy site, but I don't know what else to call it. It's not the official website yet,
It's
right?
not the official
It's
website.
like a
This is
test
the
website.
Test site, maybe?
this is going to be the actual underlying website. Our regular website, georgetown.k12.ma.us, will be pointing to this actual site. This is just another
Right.
web address, how
So-
it's accessible.
So we chatted with the school administration on Tuesday at our administrative meeting, and we thought we'd come to talk with you tonight. And then the goal, we're hoping to launch this thing, pointed in the right direction, after the 15th.
Great.
So, Barry, why don't you just give us some of the highlights then?
What we did is we tried to come up with a website that was, one, easy to maintain, and it's something, I'm very familiar with Google Sites and how to change the colors and maintain information. So that seemed like the best deal for us to go with. I found a color scheme based on another district's color scheme, and we borrowed the colors from it, and it was very pleasing to look at. We decided also that the front page of our website should really be our calling card. Instead of just being the superintendent's office, it's the district website, so you can get everywhere from this one page. If you wanted to go to the superintendent's office, you would go to what was the original landing page, where you're going to have more text, but still not too much information. All the information we're going to have is going to be in the headings and hopefully logically organized. And that's where I really depended on other people, because the way I'm going to think of where something should be on a website isn't necessarily going to be how somebody else should think about it. So we had a lot of discussions about where things should be, what should be included in the quick links. The websites for the elementary schools, the Pearlies is very similar in structure to this. The Pembroke is different in a very clever way, that it is built for different audiences. There's a section for parents, for visitors, for children, and very, very nicely done. And Dr. Tanner gave me some great suggestions for that. So it's moving along very, very nicely. The links to the schools are right there. The departments, most of these are actually other Google sites. The food services is maintained on a Google site. The facilities will be maintained on this site. Curriculum and instruction is a separate Google site. Budget and finance, business office, those will be pages on this site that will populate with information as we get it. One of the things we try to be very careful with in this site is if we had nothing to populate a page or nothing planned to populate a page, don't have the page. Because it's disappointing to click on something and for it just to be a dead link. So we're trying to be very, very good on this website. We find our community links to try and have things that people are really looking for. And hopefully, and I notice, I think on this, I'm not sure if I don't think I have the lunch menus on this one, on the elementary schools. One of the main things that people go to on the elementary websites is the lunch menus. So we
have
made
it in
sure
there.
that those
You just
are
can't see
featured.
You can't see
Yeah.
it.
You
It's
can't
just
see it because
blue.
it's blue, just the same as the calendar.
Right, it's something that we can't see on this screen. I can see it beautifully on my screen. It doesn't project as well. I think if I can
But Barry, why is, oh, there you go.
Because it's a click.
I can highlight. It's someplace that I've been, and so it changes color
I
once you
see.
visit a link.
Okay, got it.
If I highlight them, you can see them a little bit
Okay,
better.
got it.
But maybe you don't want to do that for the public.
I could possibly do that. It will show up on their screens, okay.
Without changing color?
It will change color, but it's not as drastic as what you're seeing there
Right.
on the projected image right now.
I'm just thinking as a parent, if I go once a month to download the lunch menu, and then the first time I go, it's white. The second time I go, I'm going to be looking for that white lunch link.
Yeah.
And
That's a good point.
because you do it so quickly and you do it once
Yeah.
and you don't do it again for another month, if it's blue, you may think, where'd the lunch link go? Because you're not looking for that different
Yeah,
colored link.
and that's
So-
something I could consider, absolutely. We have links to the school committee agendas, minutes, meetings. We do post their videos online on YouTube now.
You're
How
famous.
thoughtful.
You're on YouTube. You're on YouTube.
And I think our biggest challenge is going to be to keep the information fresh on the website. So we're trying not to be overzealous in what we post, because if we post too much, we're not going to be able to keep it up to date. So we're trying to be reasonable with what we put up there, so that we can actually do a good job with it. So that's the basic look and feel. I can show you.
So, can
Yes.
I ask, the contact us, where does that go? If
Well,
I-
let's see.
It's waiting. Okay.
I see, okay.
So
So
that-
it does give you opportunity.
And you can click right on that
it's
email
a
link,
live
and it
link?
goes,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
Great.
And so could you go back up, Barry, and just see what else is, in the, just directions, and, just show them the directions, I think that's cool.
I think it's the same on this site.
That's the one where you actually, it's a MapQuest thing.
You can put where you're coming from, you can put your address, and it will actually use Google and give you directions to the place you're going.
Will this replace Edline?
No, we're not going to replace the middle or high school sites at all.
Yeah, the middle high school sites really are linked right into Edline. So we're not, our intention is not to leave Edline, but what
Great
people
question.
can do is they can link, it's a better linkage from the home page to the high school pages. The other thing that was added to the high school page, I think this was Pam's idea, or Pam's question caused me to look into it, and I talked to Paul Schwam about it, who is sort of the webmaster for the middle high school. He's our librarian, was to put a departments section. So right now, if you go to the site and you're a parent, you get your login for Edline, and then you go right in and you go into your teachers, and you can find out all kinds of information about what the homework was, the philosophy, the syllabus, all that. But if you just go there as someone who's not a parent, just looking for, well, what kind of programs do they offer at the middle high school, you wouldn't necessarily, there wouldn't have been any place for you to go. So now there's a departments tab, and so the Paul took and cut and pasted a lot of information from the Edline sites to make it be clearer what the programs are there. Of course, there is always the program of studies, but the program of studies is different. It's different, yeah.
Department.
I like that you put the district office at Pearlie. So
Yes.
that
That's important.
we all
and-
know that, but to people that aren't familiar with it, I like
Right,
that
and
that's-
anybody who's going to be looking for the directions
Right.
Also isn't going to be aware of that.
And we're still working on the pictures, right? We had some people taking, Rob and Pam, and I think Carl's letting us look at some of the pictures that were in the repertoire on the old site. But I did contact Carl and let him know that we were doing this, because I didn't want him to hear that we were and then feel like we in any way were not appreciative or disrespecting, the work that he had put in. And he was very gracious. He completely understood why we were doing it, and offered his help in the future if we ever need it. He's a phenomenal man to work with, and
And can I ask if anybody has feedback on the site or requests? Where do they send that information? Who should they contact?
well, I would say that they should contact my office,
Your office.
just as a kind of a clearinghouse.
Okay.
So yes, that.
So if there's something that's not on the website
We
that
should
they're
probably
looking for,
figure
and
out some way, Barry, to put something up there saying, that the site is new. We welcome anybody's, comments, and we can figure that out. The other thing we can do is we can, what do you call that thing that crawls? The crawly thing? I call it the crawl. It like says no school today weather
Headline.
related.
A banner?
Yeah.
Yeah,
banner.
we can.
Marquee.
Marquee, that's what it is.
Okay.
I'm too used to calling it a crawly
Crawly.
thing. I'm there.
Barry talks my language. He always understands what I mean. That's what I love about that. So, any questions or comments or considerations?
I like it. One thing that I saw that I don't know if you can put it in here if it's even appropriate was when you get close to or when school gets out in the middle of summer, like a back to school tab, like when does school start? When are the bus routes going to come out? Where do I find my bus routes? What do I do for books? What about in the high school fall sport tryouts? When do
That'd
fall
be very
sport
helpful.
practices start?
Key dates, yeah.
Does kindergarten start the same day as
That would be on the calendar.
first grade? But yeah,
But you want it in one central
But-
location.
yeah, like-
Something for people in the summer.
yeah, exactly. That they
Or
can
with all the questions that come to your
yeah,
mind.
the things
at
that we
time.
all in July sit there and
That's a
say,
great idea.
what about
It's a good idea.
this?
Very good
Yeah,
idea.
yeah.
Well,
And
that's
it
where I
is.
think also having someplace on the web that says, I was looking for X and I couldn't find it, help, because you
Right.
can't, it's very hard to think of those things, of what it might be that you'd go to the website for, until you go to the website and you can't find it.
Right.
And one decision we've also made is to not put a search box on these websites, because if you search for instance, the lunch menu, all you're going to get is where it says lunch menu on the side of the quick links on the elementary site. Because the lunch
Okay.
menu is not hosted on the site at all, it's hosted off-site completely.
Right.
So we decided to go with no
Okay.
search box on
So
that.
if you're the type that likes, you go to different websites and there's things that you see, the features that you see that you like, that you think, oh, that would be really helpful for us here, or then we just please send them along, and we can certainly consider them. if there are things that are within our capacity to do. I mean, some people have very sophisticated websites that have backbones that, are really complicated. But if it's not, and it's something that, would assist the public, because we've also identified, figuring out ways to maybe make the budget process be more easily understood by the public. We may want to use some elements of the website to help with that.
We could use that.
We could use that. Yes.
Well, yes,
And we're looking at constant
finance
contact as
and
another
budget is
option.
populated.
Right.
We've discussed a number of different documents that will go up there to help all of us understand better the
Right.
process and what's happening.
Yes.
I would say that the public also wonders about just the whole philosophy that guides us.
Philosophy of the district?
Of the district in educating kids, and when it comes down to, for instance, my child is struggling in this area but doesn't qualify for an IEP, what is the district approach, and where do I get those answers, and how do I understand it better? And I'm just trying to think
Yeah.
of things, and I want to make a list actually for you.
Yeah.
The frustrations that I hear from parents that just seem so disconnected from all the good stuff we talk about
Yeah.
in these meetings, and just not clear in my head. Where do I send those parents? Like, how do I help?
Well, the first thing we would always do in that situation, if it were not necessarily a special education situation, even if it was, you'd want them to go to the teacher first and then to the principal.
Yes.
And then the principal works with, the director of special ed. If it's a curriculum question, they'd work with Julie.
But where does it
but the-
tell people that? Where do people learn that?
Yeah, well, we'll,
That's-
I'll consider what you're asking for, and one of the things that, Pam had talked about was school committee protocols, which direct
That was
people,
just my
which
note.
direct people sort of, what is the chain of command? So if you have questions about this,
Yes.
so I think that's a point well made. If you make a list, that'd be great, and that is something that we need to bring up in
And-
policy. At that's why we have that's on the agenda for the next policy subcommittee meeting. We do have to talk about that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the special education department, right now it has a somewhat outdated, number of documents on there that, the CPAC and the school administration are working on
Well, so
collaboratively
there's a
together.
question, like,
to
if I
update
wanted to
and
know
to
what
put
special
everything.
education
The
about
programs that are, services
in
that are
Georgetown,
available.
where would I find that on this website? Under departments?
Departments, there's
Yeah,
special
okay.
You
education.
would,
Yes.
but I
And
think
it
that
is there.
it is, but it
But
may not
it's
be
a little bit-
intuitive, so we'll.
And I think that's
Updated.
part of the, and that's a little tricky too, because, we think, we know where it is and why it would be there, but for John Q. Public to understand
Yes.
where it would be
Yes.
is yet, a different, language, a different
See, I think
use.
People will get to know though as they use
Right.
this website, as they're drawn more to it.
Remembering too that not everything
you
can
look-
be right on
Right
the
on the
front
site,
page.
that's
You
right.
have to be
Exactly.
in a hierarchy.
And sometimes you do need to go to the contact information, say, well, I have a question about this, I got to contact.
right.
But who to contact if I have questions about this? I actually saw that on a site, and I have to remember where it was now, but I thought they did it very well. Maybe I can find it, Barry, we can look at that.
the thing, like one thing that catches my eye is why do we have bully prevention and intervention?
That was my first- that was one of my
on the
notes.
quick links and
Well,
It's been difficult to find a home for that.
Uh-huh.
We have heard that a lot of parents do want to know what our policy and our prevention plan looks like. I mean, it is a commonly asked, a topic that a lot of people want to know more about. And it doesn't exactly fall into the, category of departments. And it was hard to decide where to put it, and a lot of districts
it's part of,
sites
it's really part
struggle
of
with
we
that.
talked about putting it under school committee policies, but that policy manual is so dense.
well, I
that
don't think
actually-
I don't think parents would go to school committee policy
I know.
for something
Well,
like
that's
that.
That's,
But
see,
I-
and that's
I
the
think
issue.
that's where a lot of
Most other
districts
district
have it.
sites do
I know.
put it up
Well,
here as a
and
quick
it
link.
will
hard
be
to
there
find,
too, but that's
right.
not the first
But
place.
I understand.
I don't know if this is the place to have the conversation.
Yeah, I was gonna
This is
say,
the
yeah.
but if it's not, but I have some thoughts that I really want to share about that.
Okay,
and I will,
all right.
I will make them known.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say,
Sure,
yeah,
we were-
certainly, Pam and Rob.
okay.
Yeah, I have a couple notes I'll shoot off.
Okay.
All right.
I just want to make sure that I publicly thank Barry.
Barry's worked
We
so
can't do a
hard.
lot of things without Barry, but
Yes.
this was not a small task, and he did a lot of it on his own time. And I think it's a product that we can be very proud of, and it will just get better as we have a chance to work on it. But
We really
without his
appreciate it.
expertise and time, and we would not be in this place. So,
Very
thank you, Barry.
Thank you, Barry.
Okay, and that will conclude my section.
All right, let's see, moving right along then to line item transfers, financial report. We'll do that and then we'll do CIP. Is that, okay. Okay, next up are line item transfers. All right, so Chair will entertain a motion to approve transfers numbered 139 through 153 as presented.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Alright, do you mind just handing that over to Laura?
Yeah, come on, Mike.
Thanks. Alright, and we're gonna do CIP now?
Yes.
Okay, this is a brand new topic that I think came up at 5 minutes of 7. Joan and Carol, Joan was at a department head meeting.
No, I was,
Sorry, Carol was at a department head meeting on Tuesday, and Mike Farrell asked for, or Wednesday, and asked for a list of capital projects that we want to put forward to the capital improvement committee for next year for the schools. Quite frankly, I have no idea. And I'm being frank, and I'm a little nervous to put forward any projects without really understanding, kind of taking Pembroke out of the picture right now. Notwithstanding the fact that we're gonna have some, new security equipment costs, and what our real needs are, from Margaret and Peter and Brian.
We also have the feasibility study for the middle
That's
high
right.
school
Well,
going.
that's
Right.
exactly, but I believe Joan was told that she has to have a list to him by next week?
There's a meeting Wednesday night.
By next Wednesday. And the little history behind that is last year we had some items on the list that the committee, I don't think had fully discussed or voted on or kind of thought through. So I had asked Carol that this year we don't have anything on the list because last year what they did was, being generous, they cut our operating budget and put it into our capital budget. So it kind of took the opportunity for us to decide how we're going to use the funds away. So I really want to either understand what our options are and either put something on there or say we don't know what they are until our next meeting. So we're not going to vote on anything. We're just going to hear what we're looking at. And then we're just going to have to figure out how we want to proceed.
so for the new members, the town has had a CIP by bylaw, Capital Improvement Planning Committee, by bylaw for a long time. And it's comprised by bylaw of members of various boards. So the school committee actually has a member. They're
Yep.
2-year terms. Mr. Oh, yes, I can see his face.
I can see his face too, and I can't remember his name.
He is a public citizen.
No.
And McManus, right? Mr. McManus.
Manus.
And he's been serving for the last 2 years on the committee. His term is up. So with the chair's permission, we should put an advertisement out saying that we should contact Mr. McManus, obviously, first. But we should put an advertisement out saying that the position is open and that if Mr. McManus would like to obviously apply for it again, he certainly could. Somebody else might be also interested. It would be the school committee's responsibility then to appoint someone to that CIP committee. Now, in the past, what I've been told, at least since I've been here, what I've seen is there's been people on the committee, but there's been no money. So people have been very frustrated with the process. Everybody can identify the capital projects, but then when they prioritize them, there's no money. The town doesn't have any money. So what you've probably seen in the last couple of years is the town has identified money. They're taking a portion of free cash and saying that they're going to set that aside and they are going to fund capital projects. Anna's alluding to the fact that last year, so that they would have the opportunity to have enough money in that pot, they did, I don't think they saw it as a direct match, but we sort of saw it as a direct match.
Well, it was a reduction of our operating budget.
Right.
Was that the 160?
It was
That's
a
right, that's
right.
168.
It was a deduction from our
Right,
operating budget.
but they had already they had already approved some projects for the schools that the committee hadn't fully blessed. So the question is, we'll just use an example, you know, would the committee have preferred to keep the money in their operating budget or get a piece of equipment, you know, a tractor? To the town, those things are not, they're not out of the same buckets, right? The operating budget's the operating budget, and the capital improvement budget is the capital improvement budget. So, what we are talking with you tonight is, are there any items that as a school department, through the school committee, do we want to charge Joan and Mike to put together the paperwork for and submit it in a priority order at the point we're ready to do that, so that the CIP committee can meet, go through all the town priorities, and then identify based on whatever money they have available, what those priorities are going to be. So Mike has a lot of things that he's listed through his maintenance plans, some of which are perhaps going to be dealt with in the feasibility study. So for example, if you look at,
Do we have copies that anyone?
you
can
don't
look
have
at?
any we literally just saw this.
I wrote
So I'm just
all
going to give you a couple of ideas of things that we think are important, all right? Last year in the capital improvement process, we identified our intercom and phone system as a priority for safety and security. Mike did his due diligence, got a quote for $88,000, right in that ballpark, right, Mike? And it actually was approved by the CIP as a high priority. However, it has not come to fruition.
Hasn't been funded.
Well, it hasn't been moved forward because there's discussion about whether or not it's enough money. We think the 88,000 is the school's share, but the town share would be more. So the total package is probably somewhere in the area of 145,000. So the Board of Selectmen basically told Mike, until you know what the big number is, it's not going forward.
Is that for all the schools?
Well, that, Mike, was just for
That's
Pearlie and Pembroke, because here's the,
Pearlie
And
I mean,
the
Pearlie
middle
High
high
School.
school.
in the high school. Okay. And
We
when,
put it forward, and then the town wanted to get involved and also update all their phone services.
Right.
so is it incumbent upon you, Mike, or Mike Farrell?
Mike Farrell.
Okay,
Yeah.
I got a little
Farrell.
nervous.
Not
I'm like,
our Mike,
wait.
no.
Yeah.
No,
Okay.
but I think the other thing that's part of this situation, which is what I tried to deal with the other night or the other day with the architects, and Joan was there, is we have the Pembroke project, and in the Pembroke project, there's going to be a security system, there's going to be an intercom system, there's going to be a phone system. It does not make a lot of sense to purchase something for Pembroke that's not then going to be able to talk to the rest of the town, the rest of the district.
So does it even make sense to talk about this until we figure out what the system's going to be at Pembroke, and then we get a system at Pearlie and the middle high school that works with that?
Yes, but the question is whether or not we want to identify this as something that we want to have, working in conjunction with the other town departments to look at an intercom system that will interface, because they're going to know they're going to know what the system is at Pembroke within the next month,
Right.
because they have to spec that stuff out to
Okay.
put it out to bid. So the question
need to
is, we
update
would
the
argue
intercom.
that a phone and intercom system. See, the other thing that you should also know is Mike Farrell has asked the technology consultant for the town to take a broad look at technology and security in the town and make a recommendation to him as to what systems could be upgraded in the town. And so I'm again encouraging there to be a discussion about, and I went to the meeting with the consultant because I said you have to link these things together. All of our town phones should be on the same system. All of, we should have more coordination of our IT. So that you should just know that all of those things are happening at the same time. So phones and intercom, would be a priority. I think would be a priority for us. What else did we have on that list, Joan?
HVAC.
Oh, yeah, so we have a situation at the high school where we have an HVAC system unit that's on the roof that deals with the office area and the office, just the auditorium. And it needs to be replaced, basically, right, Mike?
Yeah.
It needs to be replaced. To me, that's a health and safety issue when you have a system that's not working.
Does Linksys
It's a roof roof unit and it wasn't covered.
wasn't
part of
the
Ed-
as
Ed-
part
It
of the
wasn't
ESCO
covered
thing.
as part of the EDSCO.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it does get all the weather, rain, snow, ice.
And my opinion is, even if renovations are going to be done to the middle high school, which I would think the HVA system would be looked at, it could be 3 years before all of those renovations are completed. So if we have the opportunity to put it on the CIP list now and have that replaced and have a fully functioning unit, air unit in the middle high school, we think that.
How much are we looking at for that?
80,000.
Excellent.
And then the,
Handicap.
oh,
At the high school.
if you've been to the high school recently, you notice that the handicap ramp is really pretty chippy. Mike and his guys did try to smooth it out, but to me, that's again a safety issue. That, handicap, people in wheelchairs really should have a nice smooth way of getting up and out. They shouldn't be worried about the choppiness. So, that, again, may be looked at in the feasibility study, but I'm doubtful of that because I'm thinking they're gonna look inside the building and they're gonna really look at the spaces and the reconfiguration of programs and rooms. I don't think they're gonna be looking at the handicap ramp outside. So if we have the opportunity, again, with capital funds to replace that and have that be, suitable, for handicapped people, I would suggest that that also be a project that we would bring forward to the CIP.
Does that ramp, does it meet code today?
I thought
believe
it
it
met
does.
code. I think the issue is just, the sidewalk's just crumbly.
Just
I
in
don't know,
disrepair.
I don't know why that is.
What do we
but-
look at for that?
15.
I was gonna say 15.
Do you put heat tape, like, do you put heating under that now, or
There's nothing there.
nothing? And to do that would be prohibitive, probably.
They probably could do outdoor.
I was-
heating
yeah.
out, yeah,
They could, but they don't typically see it.
Can I just ask about
Absolutely.
drainage issues at the middle high school? How are they eventually going to be addressed?
Drainage issues.
Is that part of the
Remember there were
feasibility?
We did
those
just reapply
FEMA
for that FEMA
grants
grant.
Oh, the FEMA
that
grant?
Yeah.
that somehow we,
Well, that would probably,
Come
I
to
think that's
be?
gonna be discussed in the feasibility.
that's gonna be part
Yeah, I
of
was
that.
gonna say, I thought
Okay.
that was,
That'll be taken care of.
Yeah, you're gonna have, the CIP has a certain amount of money every year. So again, depending, 2, 3, 4 years out, we may need to make requests to that fund for, something like that if we don't get the FEMA grant or it's
Right.
not taken care of in the building project. But thinking about the things that are most immediate, I think, is what we're bringing
so we've
forward.
identified $183,000?
And this wouldn't apply to any technology.
And
Good
145?
good question, technology, because
What was
we wanted to
145?
put
I know,
technology.
that's a question I had. Like,
But-
you said 88K, but then you said 145K total for the phone. What's the difference?
the town?
But why
Oh,
would
so
we?
you would only ask for the 88?
I would only
guess.
ask for this, I would only ask for the 88 portion for the school, and then, with the,
Yeah.
and then say, to get the town on it, which you should do, would be the additional
Sorry.
Eight.
You're right.
57,000.
Okay.
Well,
Okay.
I mean, I'm just,
Yep, that makes sense. I mean, yes, that makes sense. That makes sense. And then,
They don't cover
Technology.
technology.
yeah, they don't, we asked that question in the last CIP
Yeah, I know
thing,
they
and
did.
the definition of a capital expense is it has to be more than $10,000, and it has to have a useful life of more than 5 years. So, I would argue that we keep our technology for 10, 20, 50 years. But, arguably, the industry standard is that, technology should be replaced within that window of 5 years.
but I think, a lot of capital,
Now,
a lot of
infrastructure-wise,
capital definitions have changed, though, to go down to 5 years because of technology.
right. Well, I
You
think,
guys wanted the servers on it last time when we
Yeah.
did the
Yeah.
lease last year. Correct.
I think that there are some infrastructure things that might be able to, like, if we had some kind of a major, that's why I think an intercom system would work. I would put that under technology, right, to some
Right.
extent. But that kind of a system, because it's a system that's going to last for many, many years, would qualify. But if it's replacement of equipment, like new computers for a lab, new teacher computers, those kind of things, they're not going to qualify based on what we understand the criteria to be.
Carol, is this the same funding mechanism that some CIP money is being talked about for the new turf field?
The new turf field, nope,
Nope.
no, what we're talking about for the turf field is
CPA.
yeah, that's right, CPC funds.
CPC fund,
That's
sorry.
it, I know.
Yep.
That's it, you're right. Yep, thank you.
Now, that doesn't mean that at some point, some elements of a project like that couldn't come on to a capital request, but right
Right,
now, the
CP
plan is
CPC
it's
is the-
CPC.
Do we have some kind of intranet or connectivity network so that computers in one school connect to another, especially in the budgetary financial area?
We do not.
We don't have a
that be-
school, the schools don't talk to town
That's
hall.
I didn't think.
That's
Yeah. So, I mean.
The schools don't talk to each other, yeah.
Right.
Brought it up just as
Yeah, no,
an
yeah.
idea.
That is something we can put on our list.
And to have better
That I-
financial management, I mean, so that we could really keep track of budgets and
Yes, but
as
that's.
it happens in real time.
That's a very, that's a costly, our backbone infrastructure is
It's
really
over
weak in the
10,000,
town.
yeah.
That's why I said to you when I went to that meeting with the town consultant, that was one of the things we discussed. That's why Mike wants to commission this guy to take a look at all of the technology, because we're all in agreement that the connectivity is a high priority. Now, whether or
Right.
not that gets paid out of CIP through the town on a town request,
Right.
or, I think right now we don't know that.
Yeah, see, because the
Is it a
argument is
warrant
gonna,
article?
well,
You
because the
know?
argument of, is it gonna have a useful life of more than 10 years, is technically no. But the reality of Georgetown is,
useful
yes,
life
it
of
will.
time.
Create a network and an intranet, I would think that could last more than 10 years, that should last
That-
more than
it
10
will.
years.
No, it should, but
It wouldn't come through the schools though, Pam.
Okay.
yeah.
I agree 100% with you. And I think that Mike
Just to, you
believes in what you're saying as well. That's why I think he's got the consultant taking a look at it. So there could be some discussion about what is the cost of putting together that backbone, and
Right.
then they'd have to identify where's it coming from in
Right.
terms of, who's going to pay for it. Is it a warrant article? Is it CIP? And then the other thing that'll probably come to the school committee's level at some point to talk about is this the, if we're gonna share, if we're gonna merge departments, is an IT department, town and school, something that makes
Okay,
sense?
let's-
I would argue with you that it does make sense. Of all of the ways to put departments together, I think that one makes the most sense to me.
Yeah.
But that's one of the things that, I think the consultant is looking at.
Good. Good.
So are we gonna, I serve at the will of the committee, so I'm not gonna say what we should do, but I'm very hesitant to put these things forward to CIP, then go forward with our budget, whatever number that's gonna come out with, then say, oh, but look, you have $183,000 worth of,
Right, but I
I'm
think that's not the way to think about it, Ann, honestly, because they're two different pots of money.
Carol, I completely agree
Yeah.
with you. There's no question in my mind, there's two different pots of money.
Yes,
I'm saying what happened last year.
I understand.
I don't want to sit here and say, okay, well, actually, I won't be here. I don't want you to have to sit here and wrestle with, okay, we're going to get $183,000 worth of capital improvements, but now the downside of it is your operating budget is now reduced by some factor
So let
of
me
that.
clarify a couple things. Number one, we're not gonna get $183,000 worth of stuff. We're gonna put things forward. Every other department is gonna put things forward. There's going to be a process that that this committee goes through. We might get nothing. We might get one thing. Who knows? So the process that we're engaged in right now is just, are there things that we feel, if there is a capital improvement budget that is available to the town, that we wanna get in on, so that we can get some capital things done that we need to do?
So, okay, one, we don't know that there's a budget for the town, right?
We
A
do
cap-
know there's a budget for the town. I don't know what the number of the,
And
for
do
capital.
we know how
improvement.
it's being funded?
Capital improvement?
I believe it's 1/3 free cash of the free cash.
It is. It's a portion of their free cash.
And was the other
They have $1
portion?
million in free cash.
So they're gonna put
They
350,000
might.
to a capital
Yeah,
improvement
yeah.
fund.
They might. I don't have the number. I'd feel like I was misleading you potentially if I told you the number, but Mike is right.
But it's being funded out of free cash, we know that.
That's right. So what they do with they take a third and put it in stabilization, a third in free cash, and a third in capital.
We could put these forward and come back and you guys could take a formal vote on it.
Right. I mean, if we could get the paperwork started, at least get the cost and firm up that stuff for you. The question is, does the committee have any objection to any of these three things, you know, being fleshed out a little bit more and brought potentially forward? And then Ann's right, we're gonna have to discuss the budget, but
They're
But
two different,
they're-
I completely agree, they're two different buckets. However, last year,
I understand.
there was muddy.
But I can guarantee you that the police department's not gonna pass up the opportunity to get some capital things that they need for
But
their
they didn't get their
department.
operating
But they-
budget cut last year at the expense of
But-
capital.
Can you help
I'm
me
just,
out?
all I can do is explain how I understand the situation to be.
But
It's your call.
I mean, can you help me understand? I mean,
Yeah.
I totally know what you're saying,
Yeah.
and I understand it's two separate budget buckets.
Yeah.
And I don't want to see what happened last year happen again.
We don't either.
And so that will not happen again, or you don't know? You can't say.
The way I understand the process to be is this process moves forward and gets decided, and then recommendations from CIP go to town meeting in the fall. I mean, the spring. No, the spring. That's how I understand that process. I think it's a separate process. That's how I understand it to be. We're gonna have to go and do our budget. Ultimately, we're gonna have to figure out with FinCom what our bottom line ends up being. I'm not saying there couldn't be some people on FinCom who might say, well, you got all these capital things, so therefore, but that's not how I understand the process. The process I understand right now is we're supposed to put forward basically a level services budget. That's basically what we're supposed to do. And, they may or may not recommend a cut to our budget, but I don't think it's gonna be because of the capital. I think last year, at the
It wasn't
final-
because of the capital last year, it was to fund a capital,
That's right, but now they
Fund.
have
fund a
that.
capital
But now they have that fund.
Based on-
bucket.
Now they have that fund. Remember, last year they were just establishing that fund.
Right.
And remember, they had that somehow in their mind, no matter how hard we tried to convince them, they felt we should have taken that grant fund, that
And
money,
accounted for
and
it.
accounted for it in the override. So I think that
Right.
some people just had that, like, that's the line they drew in the sand, and it was like, if, that's how they did it.
Right.
So we won't have that kind of a circumstance or situation this year, because our budget, we won't be in that situation.
We won't be losing that grant money.
That's right.
Now, is there any reason why the HVAC for the auditorium wasn't included in the EDSCO?
I think it came down to, it probably was
Program?
originally, and then the money,
Yeah,
the
they
money,
did do some cutting towards.
Yes, they had to do
because
some-
they couldn't save enough money.
Oh, really? Okay, I didn't
So
know
if
that.
they couldn't justify a savings, then they didn't repair.
Right.
the-
Okay, I wasn't aware of that.
and I mean, people aren't unsafe the way the auditorium is right now. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, there's an exchange of air and all that, but it really does need to be replaced. And,
It's on its last leg.
it's on its last legs.
Okay.
So, let me just make sure so I understand how you'd like to go forward, and we can make sure we do what we need to do. So, if you don't object to those items that we identified, if Mike and Joan could fill out the forms for Mike, and we could, if you want, we can come back at the next meeting with, I don't know, maybe a little bit more cost and maybe a little more information on the process, and you can take a vote.
I think we should, I think
officially
we need
put
to
them-
vote on
To
it.
put them
Yeah.
to an official, and in the meantime, maybe what we can do is we could do some contacting in the next 2 weeks of, our CIP rep and put an ad in the paper and see if, and then maybe at that meeting in 2 weeks, you can appoint the rep. So we can kind of handle two things at the next meeting.
Now, when you prioritized all these, how many projects did you come up with?
I'm not sure.
Like you're saying, you're giving us 3. Were there other projects?
Well,
A lot of them were, some of them were the Pearly School, but, I mean, that's a process that's going on with the historic,
some were
building thing.
repointing the steps.
those things are happening, going to happen.
Those are on the schedule. Those will be scheduled for the
And-
summer.
And the most of them were high school that we're hoping will be taken care of in the feasibility study.
Things like ripping up the rugs and replacing them all with tile.
I think we also need to understand how, as long as we can be sure how the CIP
Is funded.
is going to be funded.
All right, so I'm gonna
I mean,
put
like
that
real
down.
clear.
CIP, amount to be spent, and how is it funded? Okay, I'll find that out.
Will that answer the question, Ian? How it's
I'm
funded?
just,
Oh, yeah, I mean, if it's Yeah, how is it gonna get
To be
funded?
spent and
Where-
how
where's
is
the
it
money coming
funded?
from?
Actually is gonna be funded.
I'm
Yeah.
concerned about us not putting out to the community the kinds of, I mean, I understand your desire to be cautious. I understand that. And I wonder what happens if we don't let the community know about the kinds of capital improvements that are needed in the school. And then, you know, somewhere down the line, we have a major failure. And
Maybe we can rethink
then
this.
somebody comes to us and says,
Take
well,
things out
how come
that
nobody
don't-
knew that,
that are
like the
feasibility.
roof caving in at the Pearly School, you know, a couple years ago? I mean,
Right.
how did it get to that point? And so I just think maybe I'm wrong and I don't understand completely, but I think the more that the schools can do to make public what is necessary to keep our buildings and our facilities functioning at a high level, like to where do you draw that line, I guess, is how do you balance that need between not wanting, you know, money taken from your operating budget to cover these things, but also needing to make sure that the public is well aware that school buildings don't last forever and facilities need to be maintained and there's a cost involved and that there's a need to be very, I think, very public about that and put that out there. And this is a vehicle for doing
So
that.
I think if, what Ann's saying is if we get information that says, this is the amount that's gonna be spent this year and this is how it's funded, then I think people feel a little less worried that it's, you know, the budget, we're gonna cut our budget in order to.
Typically, we would do a capital budget and we'd line up, you know, we need, you know, we used to always do like a priority list of 1 to
Right.
10, 1 to 20, whatever the number was, and say, these are the things that we need to do. And these would be the typical items that would have on there. And you go all the way from like 100,000 down to, I'm
Yeah.
going to say 10,000 because that's the bottom. And then through the budget process, we'd discuss that. And either we'd get it funded through CIP, or as Carol said, there's never been any money in CIP.
There were already people interested, but no money, and now now we're having trouble getting people to be serving, to make decisions about the money they have.
Right.
Go figure that.
So that's the mechanism. It's really during the budget process that we would talk about what do we need to spend money, what do we need?
And then how would it be funded?
What
Through a
looks like it
warrant
needs
article?
replacing, what
It-
looks
it-
like
depending
If it was a
upon
capital?
we
if it
need
was-
to invest in.
if it was capital and it was something that we really needed to do, like if the HVAC was, you know, something that absolutely had to get done, we would request it. If there was no funding for it, would have to go for a warrant article.
I see.
And ask for free cash,
Sure.
or ask for an override, or what other,
Debt exclusion.
debt exclusion, whatever the like we asked for,
Thank you,
Okay,
Mike.
pretty
The old,
good.
the old word is
like
tough.
not, I mean, not to bring up something that we've heard 9,000 times, like we asked for a debt exclusion, or not, I can't remember what we asked for, how, the mechanism, but we asked for funding for vans for special education.
Oh, yeah.
I remember
and-
that.
Be-
Yes.
And that,
Actually,
And that was
people have
not
asked me
approved.
why we don't put that back
so
on
there
the
were
list.
things like that that we've gone, you know, through, and we'll say, you know, this is what we need. And usually it goes through the budget process because it's kind of interwoven. If we had gotten, and I'm not trying to beat a dead horse, but it's the
No.
best example I can come up with.
Yeah.
If we had gotten the vans, our special ed transportation would have been, would have gone down.
Yes.
And it's rising.
So that,
It
you know, it was
would've
that
provided
type of
more
thing, so,
flexibility. Yeah, so for next meeting, Ann, I'm gonna get information on the amount that's been spent and how it's funded for next year. We're gonna make a new list for you, and then you're gonna have the opportunity to prioritize them at the next meeting.
can you come up with a recommended priority
We will.
list? Because I mean, like, personally, I don't know what's more important, the HVAC for the auditorium or the phone intercom system. I would rely, or the committee would rely on your
Sure.
expertise.
We can do that.
To guide
And
us,
then we'll
and then
look,
we would
we'll look
discuss.
further into the issue of the computer technology. What would qualify or what wouldn't qualify. Okay? And we'll try to, when Mike and Joe and I look at the list, we'll do our short-term things, which we would recommend for this year, but then Mike asked us to look out like 3 years. What's difficult is, it's hard to look out, when you have the feasibility study, you know, and then you have the
That's-
Pembroke project. I mean, in an
Right.
ideal year, you would be looking at all three of your schools, and it'd be pretty easy to look out and say, 3 years from now, this is what we
That
know
would be
we
a
need.
great idea.
But we've got
Yeah.
these other things in the mix, which
Yep.
makes it a little bit more complicated.
All right.
All right, thank you.
Moving right along, budget and finance.
We have to get a meeting.
We, okay, yeah, I say we, I'm not that anymore. Governance?
He's hanging there.
Governance, that's right, has not met since November.
Okay.
The last time we did, we were working on the staff confidentiality agreements, the policy on public complaint, and participation in school committee meetings.
Okay, great. And are you also working on the superintendent's evaluation in,
Yet, in that subcommittee meeting.
in how we handle that in public session? And Naomi said she didn't like the language of our policy. Or is that
Okay, I'll put a
or
note.
is that public complaint? I'm wondering if I'm
It's
confusing
the public
those two.
complaint one.
Is that
on
what
the-
it is? Okay.
Yeah,
Okay,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
it's
yeah,
not-
scratch
it's
that.
not the
Scratch that.
evaluation.
Yeah, you're all set.
Okay.
Okay.
But it is on the agenda to talk about, because that didn't make it to the final
Okay.
form.
All right. Negotiating.
We have a meeting scheduled for next Wednesday.
And don't we have an? Is it next Wednesday?
We've got two GISA
We have
ones.
GISA, the 16th
Okay.
and the 30th, and then. Is it next
I
Thursday?
thought it was
Mike?
next
Is it
Thursday we had it.
17th?
Okay.
Yeah, 17th, it was.
That's why
It
you
is.
said your calendar's so busy. It is, next week.
Okay,
It
and
is what it is.
we have
Yes, Thursday.
So, Mike, it's next Thursday.
Yes,
Okay.
next Thursday.
So that's the teacher's evaluation.
Yes. Yep.
All right. Public relations. Was it the website?
Yes, it was a lot the website, and that was one of our, as Carol had mentioned, one of our 3 communication goals that we had set in September. We were looking at the website, email marketing, and the constant contact. So we, at the last meeting, we were looking at the final punch list to launch the website, and then we talked about what we would be working on for the rest of the year. And so we talked about trying to assemble a database for constant contact and think about the how we would use it, what kinds of emails would go out, the content in the spring. We also would be looking at trying to put together a district-wide brochure. And we also then came upon a 4th goal that we wanted to add to our original 3, which was to really thoughtfully consider how we were going to communicate to the public about the budgeting process and the goals of the budget, and how a budget comes together, and how this year's budget will be different than last year's budget, the changes and why, and what would be the best venue, a way to put that information out. And Carol Jacobs was also interested in doing maybe a cable television program or show with Beverly Enos,
We've been talking about
as
I
some,
know, I
as,
keep talking
as a
about it.
means to
Charlie keeps telling me he's coming over
get that
tape me.
information out, and so we're discussing that and future direction.
Great. Rob, anything else on building, or are you set? Okay. Big thing is meetings on January 15th, 17th, and 22nd for the building committee.
Safety meeting.
Oh, safety.
Yeah.
Yep.
We just had a safety meeting this morning with the police department, representatives from the police department, including Chief Mulligan was there, and from the fire department, and from the bus transportation company. And we discussed a lot of the security measures that we've already mentioned in this meeting tonight. And the police, everybody is working very, very hard and collaboratively on that, and making sure that, all the recommendations are heard and put into effect. We also discussed the Code Blue drill that was held in January, this
One
month.
was yesterday, right?
Middle high school. Yeah.
Yes. And Chief Mulligan said from his perspective, everything went very, very well, very, very smoothly. Everyone took it seriously. He said, in previous years, there might have been like some giggling coming from classrooms or something, but this year, all was quiet.
He said it was
Everybody
the best
out of the
quarterly
hall.
drill we've ever had.
Yes,
Everyone,
everything
like,
went very well.
My classroom,
Clockwork.
silent. And I was talking to my teacher, Miss Laflamme, who had like 67th graders who all had to be in the auditorium, absolutely silent, no giggling, nothing.
Wow.
Yeah.
So they really, I mean, they really respect the
I'm glad
Clinton
and sad at
system.
the same time.
Yeah.
Yes. And Chief Mulligan was also talking about how important he believed it would be for us to have a school liaison officer, which would be, you know, an additional officer patrolling the schools inside, out. And so he's going to be speaking with the Board of Selectmen about that very soon.
Monday night, he's got
Monday
me
night,
coming.
yes.
Right.
So that would not be in our budget?
That would not be
He
in our
would be
budget.
asking the town to cover that?
Mhm.
I think now's a perfect opportunity to bring that forward.
Yes. All right. Okay, next up, old business, the FY14 budget timeline. So right now, there's a meeting scheduled for Saturday, February 9th. I don't know what time, where, or anything other than that date. And it's with FinCom to present the, where we think we're gonna be on the 2013-14 budget.
Do you know what time that is?
I don't
No,
know
she doesn't have the
anything.
detail.
It's all day, so we're probably scheduled as a
February ninth.
department. We haven't been told what time yet.
February 9th.
Okay.
That's right.
So, but however, it's impossible for us to have a number by the 9th unless we
Okay.
met like twice a week for the next 3 weeks, and had a public hearing and had it approved. So, what I've had from just discussions that I've talked to Sandy a little bit about, is it's gonna be a level funded budget. And
Level funded?
Level service.
Level services?
funded,
That's the first I've ever heard of that. Level funded means exactly what we got this year.
12-6.
That isn't what we prepared.
level funded with, I'm pretty sure that's what,
Okay,
I
well,
will
here's
reconfirm.
what I think you mean. Do you mean level funded for everything but salaries? Because then
that's
it's,
always,
because then
that's
it's level
always,
services.
that's always yeah, it's level funded and then with contractual obligations
Okay.
is always their caveat, but
Okay.
it's a hybrid for them. I
That
like-
is what we're preparing.
Yeah. So, and then any increase over that, would have to be discussed.
Right. Okay.
So what I think the meeting on the 9th is gonna be to kind of lay out where our budget is this year.
Okay.
We know what our contractual obligations are. However, there's probably gonna be changes in our staffing based on, different class sizes. We have different, like, bubbles going through, different changes, in whatever we're doing. So I don't know on the 9th that we're really gonna have a number to present. I'm not
I don't know.
thinking that we're prepared to do that. But just to kind of lay out where we are and where we think we're gonna go. But what we need to do is, Carol, when
That's
are
what I
we
was-
planning to have usually we're gonna have 2 meetings. We're gonna have one, that does half the budget, the second does
Yep.
the second half of the budget. We usually break it up into like Pearlie and Pembroke one night, middle, high school, and special ed, or some hybrid of that over 2 meetings. Then we have to have a public hearing to approve the budget.
If this February 9th thing went away, then what we would normally do is you would adopt the budget at the very end of February,
Right.
right? Maybe early March, but we usually got it to the FinCom by early March. We were the last ones to present to them. And then they had their deliberations after that. And the reason for that is because the state numbers aren't available. So, it's always dangerous to put a number out to the public and then something changes and then you're
Right.
either going up or down. Well, going down is preferred, but sometimes you have to go up too. So we would normally come, as Ann said, to the school committee meetings in February. 2 February meetings would be
Right.
really the review of and there'd be a public hearing in there. But because of this February 9th thing, it really means that next meeting,
We're gonna have to
you're
start.
gonna have to at least review where we are
Right.
with the budget.
And that's what I
It wouldn't
think-
be a final adopted budget, because you'd still have to have your deliberations in February.
But I think we should have the initial presentation and then do the review meetings after that.
So what happens with the state money part?
Well, Well, we won't have the information.
We won't have the information.
So all we'll have is the information on, maybe what we would have would be, what are our staff costs?
Yep, we know what our.
What are our operational costs, that doesn't assume that, we're getting to a final number.
No.
Because, let's say the final number is, let's say 2.5% over what we have this year. Well, our budget may increase more than 2.5%. So if we need to get to 2.5%, we are gonna have to redirect, we're
Right.
gonna have to prioritize, or we're gonna have to cut.
Yep. And the other.
I don't think we're gonna be there February 9th.
No, we won't be.
Right, no.
Because the other issue that we have to be cognizant of is in the governor's last cuts, he did minimal
Right.
cuts to local aid.
Yes.
But he also did, special ed
Circuit breaker.
circuit breaker.
We don't even know what
Cuts.
we're getting this year.
So what's
Right.
frustrating is we're at 75% circuit breaker
72%.
72% circuit breaker reimbursement.
Mm-hmm.
Historically, that's been the area where he goes to cut, and we were down to 38% at one
I
point.
recall.
So if we go any lower than 72%, it's going to be a significant impact to us, and we're going to have to figure out how that's going to get handled. So that's why February 9th is really just going to be a review of here's where we are, here are our key vulnerabilities of we're assuming 72% reimbursement, and we can almost just lay out 1 point low. We can just lay out what the point is if it goes from 1 point lower equals X numbers. Like our budget is 12.6 million, so 1 point is 126,000. So
We can talk about the budget drivers and what
Oh,
they're
yeah.
costing us.
yeah,
What is their reasoning for having us show up? on the
they
9th?
want to get a sense of where everyone is kind of shaking out for what the whole town budget is going to look
Yeah,
like.
see, I think they're asking the other town departments to actually submit their final budgets.
Yeah.
Yeah, they
So what
wanted
An-
them
what
in
An-
early January.
What Ann is saying is that we may be in a situation where we don't have the final numbers, but we certainly could present information on what our key drivers are and what our costs are, and then say that, as Ann's pointed out already, that the school committee is deliberating in February, in which case, depending on whatever the bottom line needs to be, there's still work to be done,
Much as you can.
Just present what we
What we
have
know.
and-
Yeah.
I mean, like, special ed costs, what are they to date? What do we know to be the case? I mean, there are some things like that we could definitely identify. All right?
Okay, next up, new business, second reading and the adoption of the new policy GBEBE, confidentiality agreement. And we vote on that tonight.
Yes, you.
Okay.
I just had a question about this.
Yeah.
It said that at the beginning of the school year, the start of every school year, the employee would be asked to sign this.
Yes.
So how do we go about doing this when we have, like nurses that come in, when we have, teachers that, come in just for the day, the substitutes and stuff? How are we gonna
we have subs in-
handle that?
Well, when we put people on the sub list, what I would envision we do with this
Right.
is, anybody newly hired as part of their new hire paperwork.
This
they
will
would
be
have this
included?
confidentiality agreement.
Okay,
It would be part of the process of when you
Okay.
get hired, this is.
so when a substitute gets, put on that list, they
That's
get
right.
a new hire packet?
That's
And this
right.
will be in it,
That's
okay.
right.
Okay.
Good question. All right, shall entertain a motion to approve policy GBEBE as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next up is the increase of the high school student activity account to $50,000, which just allows us to collect the money and spend the money as needed for their trip to New York. So the chair will entertain a motion to temporarily increase the high school student activity account maximum to $50,000 for the period of January 10th, 2013 to March 1st, 2013 for the purpose of processing receipts and payments for the students attending the New York City trip.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, next up, once again, more donations to our schools, which is amazing. So the chair will entertain a motion to accept a $12 donation from Mrs. Van Galen with gratitude, as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So once again, and this is to be used, at Pembroke, for a library book. Another donation, is from Mr. Giagrand for Pembroke, and it's gonna be used for a third grade classroom materials. So the chair will entertain a motion to accept the $100 donation from Mr. Giagrand as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Once again, thank you to everybody for donations. It
thank you.
amazes me.
Thank you.
At nearly every meeting, we have some type of donation, either equipment or money or materials. It's amazing and greatly appreciated. One of the things, actually, do we have to talk about school committee topics?
Yeah.
Well, there's
Yeah, I
a few
guess-
things I would point
yeah.
out to you.
One of the things that we do at the beginning of the year is Carol and the chair, the chair sit down and kind of come up with a list of topics that we're gonna get through during the year. And so this list is included. And this is just kind of where we are. I had a question, Carol, about, the superintendent's evaluation process training.
Yes.
Should we do that? Is that for next year, or is
Well,
that?
the process for the new evaluation system for districts that are where we are is effective next year,
Okay.
September. But you will wanna get that information beforehand. So the reason I put it for discussion purposes where I did is because it'll be one new member.
Mm-hmm.
And if we're gonna do a process that everybody's gotta participate in, it doesn't make sense to me to do it earlier.
Yeah,
and
no,
then
okay.
have to orient
Yep,
somebody, might as
perfect,
well
yep.
do it at once. But I don't know if you wanna do that at this meeting, or you wanna do something similar to what you did with Mike Gilbert, in the Pearly, teacher's room. Remember when we just did
Yeah.
that? Because then you really can focus on the training as opposed to trying to do it in the middle of a
I would
public-
almost, I mean, I won't be here, but I would leave it where you have it in May so that you can have Mike come in and have one of those
Working sessions,
working
more of a
sessions
working
so that he
session.
can give you his expertise and kind of walk you through what he's seen and what's
Right.
worked, what hasn't worked,
Right.
why
Right.
he makes recommendations.
Right. So I think
It's open to the public so people can come.
Exactly. So I think if you start in January and just look down, obviously this month, the next
Yeah.
meeting, you would, based on this, you would have an initial presentation of the budget, then the school improvement plans mid-year, because one of the things we have to do, because we have level 2 status, is we need to update our school improvement plans. So we thought
Yep.
at the same time, it might make sense for the schools to do just brief presentations on sort of where they are with their goals and highlight a few pieces of their data that are driving any changes that they might be making to their school improvement plan.
And we did not do the full MCAS reviews that we usually
didn't.
do,
We
so
did,
they need,
Julie did remember we did the PIP and we
Right.
did the district results.
so we need to have a
So
little.
these won't, I don't anticipate these being 30-minute presentations.
Yep.
But they're, short and sweet, but linked, the data
Mm-hmm.
linked to the actual planning. And then we'll have a report from the school building committee, which shouldn't be very long, and then,
Yep.
Joan, you would do a financial report, there. Then you would move into February, obviously your budget deliberations is big
deliberations.
there. We would finalize the school calendar tonight, we're just gonna talk about starting and ending dates, but the administration and I have been talking about, where would we recommend professional development days, conference days, all that.
Okay.
That I don't want to do that tonight. I want to do that at the one of the February meetings. Obviously, you have to do the program studies for the high school. I asked Peter. Sometimes we do a
Yep.
two-part thing, and we can do 2 parts in February if necessary. But he said his information is not due from his department heads to him until the end of January, so it does need to be a February activity. And then Julie and I will do a very brief right, Mike? We're hoping that we're gonna wrap this process up. And so we would have, not only would we do a short presentation just on the highlights of that new process, but we'd be able to talk about the work we've done with the union in terms of the negotiated agreement. Moving on to March, this is where you do your budget adoption and your hearing. And then I wanted to focus on a couple of special education things. One would be our special education summer programs. A number of us have been meeting a few times now, trying to look at ways we might want to improve our summer programs, change our summer programs. And I would want the committee to know what the plans were for that, as well as Donna Straight's now has been here a year, and one of the things I would like her to do would be to talk a little bit about what she's discovered and what she sees as plans going forward with special education. And then Julie, one of the things I think you were asking a lot about, Ann, and it is one of our district goals, is specifically what we're doing with writing. Any changes that we've made to curriculum, any focus that we've had, overview of our professional development. So Julie will do a little information on the district writing initiative to
Right before I leave,
get
thank
you
you.
up to speed. That's why we put it right there, Ann, right before you leave. And then in April, obviously, we do the superintendent's evaluation, and we'll do the school committee self-evaluation, and that's when Joan will do her third quarter report, right, Joan? Was that the right
Yeah.
timing? Yeah. And then in May, you'll do a school committee reorganization. I think that's another point where the school building committee should come back and talk to you again, because they're gonna be developing bid documents that are gonna go out, in the summer. So just to check in with you there. And then we discussed perhaps having Mike come in and start doing the training, so we can be hitting the ground running, in the next year on the
And we
superintendent's
have a handbook
evaluation.
review that has to happen in May,
Oh,
because it gets
good point,
printed.
good
You have
point.
it on here.
Oh, I do?
Because
Okay.
it has to get printed in the summer.
Okay, that's right. We have a handbook review, and then in June, and I think we can discuss some variation on this. What we did last year, and I think it did work, is, the middle high school did their handbook and their school improvement plan in one meeting, but we, I just want, in May and June, let's say that, in May and June, you'll hear school improvement plans, you'll hear handbooks, and then the final report for the year one strategic plan goals will also happen in June. As always, we're very busy. And then this doesn't take into consideration all the other stuff that comes up that you have to do.
Right.
But these would be major topics, so we would try to keep those to 15, 20 minutes.
And we
So
go
does
through
that
this,
help
you
you
do
to
this
look
at the
at-
beginning of,
Definitely.
usually you
Yeah,
sit down
I like
at the beginning of the year and we kind of talk about all the things we have to get through and then plan them accordingly. Like you'll see the budget, not the budget, the calendars on there, because we need to let the union know if we're gonna start before Labor
And
Day.
parents.
We have to, but we're contractually
Yes.
obligated in January to let them know
That's
if it's
right.
gonna happen before Labor Day. And then we kind of flush out all the other dates.
And it allows us to not run into situations where, now we've got 3 meetings left and we have all of these
All of
things to
these
do.
things to do.
It allows us to,
Oh,
to
absolutely.
budget
Good
our
planning.
time a little bit better.
Okay,
Homeschool.
and we don't
plan
need to
for-
vote on that, because
Nope.
it's just a
No.
working document. Homeschool families, has been updated, so the chair will entertain a motion to approve the request for homeschooling for the 2012-13 school year as presented.
So moved. Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, next up is the school calendar. Do we have to vote?
Yeah, well, we can vote on it all at once, Ann, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, because we're
but you-
not,
Yeah.
yeah.
And don't ignore a lot of this, because there are dates obviously highlighted that I'm gonna recommend
Right.
something different. So
Okay.
what I do wanna say, for the purpose of this discussion,
let's
for the
go.
2 minutes that it's gonna take, is that, I'm not gonna recommend starting before Labor Day this year, because it's on the 2nd. It's, I think that we all agree the 2nd is early enough. And the last day of school projected, 180 days for students would be June 19th. It's very similar to this year. And obviously the 26th, if we had 5 additional snow days. So we will come back at a subsequent meeting with the particulars on the inside of the calendar.
All right, just a couple quick things. As I mentioned, there'll be one school committee seat open, and you can start pulling papers, I believe, at the beginning of February. So,
Oh, that's right. I forget
so
that
I'm
that's
just, you know,
soon.
anyone that wants to run for a seat, they should consider running. Secondly, PTA Casino Night is Friday, January 25th at the Black Swan from 7 to midnight. And that's always fun, so people should definitely try to attend if they can. February 7th to 9th, as Cole told us, is the high school play, Guys and Dolls. Tickets will be available probably the first week in February, and they always go very quickly. So
Yeah.
definitely keep your ears open for that. Second, and finally, during a number of our meetings, a number of members of the public were very inquisitive about the budget and wanted to know, you know, where money was being spent and how we decided on things. As we discussed tonight, we're going to start going through our budget. So it's your time to, you know, fire questions at us, come to our meetings, ask questions. But now is the time, you know, for you to ask questions and really understand what the budget's all about. It's the taxpayers' money, and we're the custodians of that, but people should start to ask questions.
Can we also get that information out on the new website in that banner,
The clicky thing?
the clicky thing?
No,
I mean, just
Crawly thing.
whatever forms of communications to the public about the budget, because it is so important.
So that, yeah, that if, I don't know what Barry can
I don't
do.
know if he
And
can do it.
He can.
so, all right.
February 9th too is a
You mean
baseball
about-
bash.
Oh, yes, that's right, the baseball bash.
Oh, thank
February
you.
9th,
February
baseball
9th, baseball bash
The
at
Georgetown Club, right?
the Georgetown Club, Black Swan,
Black Swan.
Yeah.
7 to midnight. I'm going to take a guess. And I think if you go to the GAA website, you can see how to
Yes.
buy tickets. I didn't print that out. Thank you for reminding me. All right, so we are going to adjourn out of regular session. We have to have a brief executive session under Chapter 30A, Paragraph 21, for three purposes. One is for negotiating strategy to discuss administrative salary ranges.
Well, it's non-custodial.
Non-custodial.
Non-union.
Non-union administrative salary ranges, ongoing litigation, as well as security issues that we talked about.
Yep.
So it's, and we won't be coming back into regular session, so it's a roll call. Yes.
You have to stay, Mike. Yes.
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 Good night, everybody.
Yes.
All right, we're in
Yes.
executive session.
Thank you, Cole.
No problem.